Hey guys, welcome to another episode of INTJ and INFP Coffee. I'm actually so excited for this episode because it's another Patreon requested episode about cognitive function development throughout the stages of your life. Mostly childhood and adolescence. And as we enter into early adulthood, how it's manifesting in our third and fourth functions, I think.
Yeah, we just kind of prepared our own notes, so this will be kind of like a live discussion, seeing if maybe like our timelines like somewhat match up, so this will be cool.
I didn't look at her notes.
I started with like myself at maybe like age 3-4. I'm not sure I could necessarily see NI at this age. Can a 4-year-old really be thinking about like conceptual things in that nature?
How did your thoughts manifest though? Like, what were your thoughts generally like?
Well, what I have is that I feel like I couldn't see NI in itself, but I feel like you could see that I was like an introvert and a judger. I was kind of like quite a shy kid in the sense that I was like an observer, and I think that makes sense with that introverted perceiving function. Like, I would sit back and just like watch things. I was kind of not comfortable participating. Like, my first week of kindergarten, I think, was probably like so hard on my mom because I was like just so scared of it because it's like a completely new environment, something that I wasn't.
Oh, that's so
used
low
to.
SE.
That
though.
is, it is. Ooh. So I feel so bad for my mom. She was telling me about how horrible she felt like dropping me off at kindergarten because I was just like crying, and she would eventually just have to leave because I wouldn't stop crying. And yeah, it does feel like very low SE and just kind of very much like introversion and judging.
You know, like same here, but I'm like SE polar. I would cry and cry and cry every time I got dropped off of kindergarten or daycare. Right. Okay, seriously though, I feel like I had FI the whole time because my earliest memories are pretty early. They're like 3-4 years old kind of thing. So I have all these memories and I remember how I felt about things, and it's very clearly how I feel about you, how I feel about you. Yeah, and I liken FI to like an ocean in that you're always submerged by this thing, so like this liquid, and you know like the temperature of the liquid, you know the color and how it feels on your skin, how viscous it is. So that's kind of like my experience of FI. Like, I'm constantly having feelings and knowing those feelings towards everything was my childhood.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. Because at first I was like, oh, maybe that's like all children somewhat experience that. But then I was like, actually, no, not really. Like, I do have a few moments of remembering like how I feel towards certain people. But that's not like, that wasn't at all my dominant mode of thinking. I think it was generally just kind of like trying to figure people out. Or trying to figure out how people fit together in some sort of like network, or I don't know.
Thank you for this topic because I just remember something. I didn't even write this down. It's like, introverted feeling. It's not just about emotions, right? It's about like personal ethics. And I just remember like I was less than 5 years old, like maybe like 5-ish. And my grandpa, like, he caught a dragonfly that he tied its tail to a string, so it's like flying, but it can't fly further. And so I was getting exhausted and passing out on the floor. And I was thinking, like, my gut reaction was like, wow, that's horrible. I was thinking, is it horrible? Like, do dragonflies have the same value? Like, do they have the same emotions as we do? So, but I started, like, delving into why I feel a certain way and should I feel a certain way, even at, like, 5 years old, basically.
That's impressive, yeah. That's very FI. Okay, yeah, I feel like at this age you could also kind of see TE in me. Because they told me I was like a very stubborn child and very like independent, and I just needed to like do things for myself. Like, I just wouldn't let anyone like help me. Like, if I felt like I could do it, then I needed to just like go through the process and figure out how to do it myself.
Wait, which age was this?
I think even really young, like probably 3, 4, 5. Like, I just remember my mom saying like when like I was learning to tie my shoes, like they just like taught me how to do it, and then after that I was like, no. I'm going to figure it out myself every time, even if it probably took me like 5 minutes to do it. Like, apparently I just refused help, and I was like, no, I can do this myself, so I'm going to do it.
I feel like I had a super early on. I was like super imaginative. Honestly, though, all these stories of me teaching my stuffed animals lessons, like, but I think all kids probably do this, but I was trying to build all these like families or situations, communities in my mind, and I kind of acted them out with stuffed animals, which I think might be like a really rudimentary use of an E, like having to air my ideas out.
No, this is interesting because, yeah, I kind of didn't think of this, but like when I played with like dolls or like stuffed animals. I think I had a hard time thinking up narratives and stuff. Like, I don't think I ever really went into that realm, but I think it was, maybe it's more TE. I don't know, I enjoyed like building homes for them and stuff like that. Yeah, like making chairs and tables for them and like arranging them, and maybe that's even like somewhat like TESE a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
But I always felt maybe even a little bit self-conscious that I didn't have this like imaginary
Oh my
realm.
gosh, that's so funny. It's so obvious that I had NE as soon as we started like elementary and junior high school. Whenever we had this like writing assignment, I'm like, dude, I have 20 ideas. Could you narrow it down? Like whenever the teacher gave a prompt that was very specific, like write a horror story that has the word crystal in it or something like that. I'm like, yes, funny, helping me rein the NE in, whereas that might be like really limiting for you.
Any sort of creative writing assignment, I really suffered. I actually remember in like, I think grade 1, we had like very regular creative writing assignments. Okay. And this was so hard for me. I feel like I cried every single time because I couldn't, like, I don't know, I just couldn't do it. I was like, how do you imagine this scenario? So my mom, like, always helped me every single time. I feel like at an early age, I realized that I was really good at logical reasoning, better than, like, most of my peers at the same age. And, like, I would just, like, teachers would just ask questions, and I would just immediately, like, know the answer, and, like, other kids just, like, wouldn't, or they would have to learn it, but to me, it was just, like, very immediately apparent. And I don't know, maybe that's some weird combination of NI and TE.
Oh, another thing is, like, this FI and E thing, and maybe this differs from ISFPs, is that we want to explore a lot of ethical modalities to see which one fits with us. So I think this is something I started, starting probably with the dragonfly at like 5 years old, but I kept doing this. Like, I was in like junior high when I started reading Marquis de Sade, which, I don't know, like sadism was like named after him. No, but he has like these like theories about how we should live, and it was very like, I guess it's rudimentary libertarianism where everyone is just, nature is the worst person of all, so everyone can do whatever they want. No, but seriously, I was exploring all of these things to figure out like how I want to act in this world based on my feelings and values. And I remember sharing these values, whatever, these discoveries with friends, and you know, some of them would like judge me really hard, some of them would tell me their values, but I didn't really care other than out of curiosity. It's like, hey, I want to learn about everyone's values. A lot of people were disagreeing with me, but it never was a problem in my mind.
That reminds me of the Michael Pierce video where he was like, the INFP was like, I see all possibilities, but what do I think? Or like, what do I feel? Or something like that. Yeah, maybe around that kind of preteen, early teen stage is when my NI really started becoming what is like very recognizably NI.
Okay.
Around that point, I think that's when I kind of started seeing trends in like society. Yeah, I think around this time I started really getting into like gender studies and stuff, and I would like research all these like feminist websites and try to like make sense of these things. And I guess my NI is just trying to like see these patterns and like, oh, okay, does this affect how we interact with one another? And or does this affect like how I perceive other people and things like that?
No, NI is so good. It's like it's the consequences. NI is so much of NI is future consequences that are probable. I feel like this was totally devoid. Like when I was delving into my NE theories, like philosophical, ethical theories of how to live my life, consequences were not part of it. If I like it was part of it, you know?
Right.
That's so ridiculous. It's not like, oh, if I act like how Marquis de Sade recommends you act, like, what is the consequence going to be? It's just kind of like, do I like this idea? Do I not like this idea? It's interesting that your NI became externally evident when you were a teenager, because my FI, like, I was always FIing, but that it became super evident when I was a teenager, because as Enneagram 4 as well, like, a lot of times a group will say this viewpoint, but I will be like, that's cool, I'm totally this other viewpoint, nah.
That's interesting. I feel like, okay, maybe I'm starting to go into the third function now. But I think, yeah, so around probably the teenage years is when I had like the first inklings of FI, but it was like so weakly developed and rudimentary. Like I think I saw things as very black and white. So I guess like all my NI sort of societal trends and stuff, I would just, like, once I picked up on this trend, then my FI would be like, yes, that's right, and that's, like, the only way to see it. And I think slowly as I kind of grew up a bit more, then my FI began to see all of like the further circumstances in which that's not always right. Like I guess my FI as a teenager.
It's becoming more nuanced
as
you grew up, I guess.
Yeah, it's becoming more intricate and nuanced as I grew up. Well, when I was a teenager, I was just like, okay, there's this one FI principle and it applies to like everything. But I don't think I like externalized it like at all. Like I would just always notice like, oh, okay, everyone feels this, but I very strongly feel that. And I don't think I ever showed it, but I was just like inside, I was like, oh, okay, look at me.
Oh my gosh. No, that's so interesting. I am still struggling with SI. SI is so difficult. Oh my goodness. Like, internal bodily sensations, I don't know. Like, seriously, I still find bruises. I'm like, oh, how did that get there? For SI, seriously, this black and white thing, totally, maybe that's a keyword to, like, the third function, black and white. Oh my god. When I was a teenager, that was suddenly when I thought, things are good or bad. And it was completely separate from my FI. Like, my FI was generally how to behave as a human being ethically in this world, how to build your best life. SI was like, ooh, white bread is bad. The other bread is good. I had all these associations, and I tried to monitor my associations in a very black and white manner. Yeah, like, for example, I was obsessed with, like, what is considered girly and what's not. So I'd be like, oh, pink is a girly color, blue is not. And I would try to avoid all things blue. No, like, it was super black and white, like almost psychotic kind of thing. It was so crazy. And the other thing I would do is idealize routine. Like, I would think of, like, a daily, weekly routine as, like, this beautiful ideal, and I would, like, spend hours, like, writing down this beautiful routine, and then, like, doing it for maybe one day, and then totally failing, like, just doing whatever I want, and then, like, feeling really bad and trying to fit into my idealized routine again. I still do it sometimes. I can't help it. It's this compulsion. When I was a kid, maybe like from like 7 to 10 or so, I kind of had like an ISFP alter ego in a sense. No, I did. I don't know. Yeah, like I guess I would just like go out like bike rides or like in nature. Okay. And just imagine that I'm like this like free-spirited hippie person, and I'm just like so in tune with nature and like myself, and I don't know. I feel like I had this, like, inner ESTJ thing in group projects. Okay, I'm freaking obsessive in group projects because I always thought that, okay, my group members, if I let them do whatever, they're gonna be incompetent, so I must, like, tell them exactly what to do. In the beginning of grade 7, we had, like, this class, like, field trip day, and I just remember this one activity where we, like, had a map and had to, like, find all these clues and then eventually get to the end, and we were put into groups, and like, looking back at it now, I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously it's just, like, some fun thing to do to, like, get to know. Did you take it, like, way seriously? Yeah, I took it so seriously. I'm like, okay, I am good at this. Like, I know how to navigate. Like, let's do this. And I, like, did not talk to my group members at all. I just, I just led the entire group and, like, did the entire thing myself while everyone just, like, followed me and, like, had fun behind me. And looking back, I'm like, oh my god. Alex! That's so INTJ. I know it is. Oh my gosh, and I wondered why I, like, could not make friends. Yeah, your TE is just literally erasing your FE. It's like erase. I think I can move on to my fourth function now. Okay, funny story. I think, like, I'm gonna paste this comment. Someone said that, like, on another video that I'm actually an ESTJ who's acting out my INFP animus, whatever thing. Right. And I'm like, that's so funny because I feel like I am kind of trying to be good at TE these days, and part of it is becoming better at confrontation. The struggle between TE and FI, as FI wants to see everything as individual, like every case is individual. But TE is like, no, they're external logical standards to be kept here. And I feel like even today, I can't really use a TE. I only use it in a burst of work, but then that's not really TE, that's just a burst of work. Okay, so recently, I met this guy that I really like, and I told my friend about it, and she's like, girl, do you even have a checklist of what you're looking for? I'm like, no. She's like, go make a checklist right now before you do something stupid. I'm like, okay. By then, I already really liked the guy, so I already knew, like, before I started making the checklist, I'm like, this is a futile endeavor, because when I finished the checklist, I noticed I just wrote down his qualities, and checked his qualities against the qualities I wrote of his qualities. I'm like, oh, it's a match, but basically it's just my FI, like, foiling this whole TE process. I'm just incapable right now, even at, like, 24, I'm incapable of just measuring someone, especially someone who I like, against external standards. It's just I make exceptions for everyone.
Okay, yeah, for my SE, yeah, again, yeah, still not super well developed, but opening up to SE means that I can just see the world as it is and actually see how many possibilities there are out there. Because I think sometimes my NI, it's like, okay, no, you can only do these things and, you know, don't deviate. But now I'm like opening to SE and I'm like, yeah, I can do all these other things. There's so many opportunities out there.
Yeah, I think you're doing that recently. You're like, hey, I like video editing. I can be a video editor. And
right.
I think you're taking your art like way more seriously in the past year.
Yeah, for sure. Just generally that extroverted perceiving function. So I'm just kind of seeing more possibilities where before my NI was like, no, there is like one path.
Thank you so much for recommending this topic. We had like so much fun discussing it. Like I think we springboarded a lot of ideas to each other.
If you guys want to request specific video topics for us to do, then check out our Patreon page on how to do that. Subscribe for more videos, and we'll see you next time. Thanks!